So welcome to another how-to video. We're using the Eylau 1807 module for Sound of the Guns Eylau 1807. My name is Matt Brown, and I am going to lead you through this. And this is a companion piece to the toolbar menu video that we released, well, yesterday. So give it a shot, see what you think, and if you have other questions, let me know, and I can add those into more videos. We're also going to be doing more videos for the actual battles and playthroughs and after action reports and so on. But we've already covered this toolbar. Down here you actually see the map, and this is a game that I'm playing with a colleague, and you'll see that it's got this blue overlay. So this blue overlay is actually kind of the first thing I wanted to talk about. But before we do that, just a quick one. There's one thing here that's not actually a menu, it's the map. You'll notice that the maps here have columns and rows. This is not the same as the paper menu. We've diverged a small bit from the actual game. And the reason we do that is because we can actually see where things are moving, and we can keep a log of those movements. So if I were to move my Dragoon regiment, it would move 1, and I'd see that it goes to 02 from 0229 to 0329. Pretty handy, like that. And when I hold my cursor over it, I can actually see that I've got 0329 highlighted, and I've got the terrain underneath. So if you're not sure whether something is in a terrain, you hold your cursor over it, and it brings up the portion of the map with the hex number, and you can see the terrain. Okay, so that's it for the map. I'm going to move this guy back, and I'm going to clear my moved markers. We talked about that as the icon in the last game. So now back to this nice overlay here. Legrand is actually a general, and Legrand has a command radius, meaning that things that are in the command radius get to move and attack normally. Things that are out of the command radius can either do nothing, or they can move towards the commander to get into command radius, or the commander can move to get the unit into the command radius. But you can't do any attacking unless you're in command radius, or movement that is not designed to get you closer to the commander. So it's important to know what your radius is. So to use that, we use our first menu item. So right at the top of a commander, it says command range. It's a toggle, it turns it on and off. And the commanders have the correct range on them. So if they're corps commanders, army commanders, or division commanders, they're all going to be producing about the same. They're going to be producing very different radiuses, but you'll see it there, and it works the same way. On the commander, there are also a couple of other things you can do that are pretty much the same as everything else. So I'm going to go to an actual unit and start doing some things to the unit. So I'm going to click off of him, and I'm going to go to my infantry unit right here. And I'm going to turn on highlight formation. Highlight formation works really well in companion with that command radius. When you select an individual unit and you hit the highlight formation, it highlights all the formations you've got with red. So now I know that these guys are all part of the same division, and this guy here is not part of that division, which is good. So I'm going to grab one of these units, and I'm going to turn on the next option I want to show, which is movement trail. And in my movement trail, I'm going to move my item, and then I can see what he's moved from, and what he's moved from, and where he's moved from, and where he's moved from, and so on. So I can track the movement of that individual unit. You'll notice that it's a darker gray. When I click off the unit, it becomes a lighter gray. And if I'm going to move another one, then that one gets the darker unit. Well, we're moving things around a little crazily here, but I'm going to click movement trail on him, and now you can actually see where he's moved around. Okay, so I can turn off the individual movement trails by just clicking on the unit and undoing movement trail. But I can also turn on all the movement trails at once, and that's up here in the menu bar. So you can go to the menu bar and choose movement trails on and set them to off. Handy feature. The next thing you've got on these guys is you've got rotate right and rotate left. There is a version floating around that is rotate clockwise and rotate counterclockwise, but there are different, slightly different versions of the module out there. And the European team has the right and left because they use that more than clockwise. So it's just a little variation. You can mark as moved and you can unmark the moves. So when you move something, it gets the moved marker so you can see that it's already moved, or you can turn that off if you don't want to have that visible. You can cloning in it. This is really not that useful because you don't really want 2 1st Battalions of the 26th Infantry Regiment. But if you have another counter here, like you might have a control marker or a smoke marker or a square marker, and you can duplicate just that guy and make a copy of him. Very handy with the Army Fatigue Point cubes. There is a delete key, and if I delete it, it just gets rid of the, it gets deleted, it deletes everything that is selected. So make sure that you have the correct thing selected. If you delete and you decide you didn't want to do that, you can always go to the menu bar and choose the undo, and back he comes. So most things are not permanent here. Now we get back to the interesting stuff. If you have this guy out and he's getting charged by cavalry, you can add a square marker to him. And the square marker just indicates that he's in a square. Choose an infantry unit here. You can set that to add a square marker, and it gets a Russian square marker, which, by the way, is invalid because you can't have a square in an obstructed terrain. But I'm just demonstrating how the right-click menus work. To get rid of those, you select just the square and choose delete. There's another one here called Add Smoke Marker, and this will probably have more functionality in future games in the series, but for now, you can use this to indicate which units have fired, which artillery, which infantry. So as you're in a simultaneous fire phase, you can go through and see what's fired and what's not. Just a way to keep you from being able to fire things multiple times. So I'm going to right click on this again and choose delete, and off it goes. Now I'm going to add a smoke marker back because I'm going to do something fun in a minute. Okay, I'm going to add a couple of smoke markers. So now I also have a button up here that clears all the smoke markers. So if you go to the toolbar, and we're not talking about the toolbar, but you click this guy, it clears all the smoke markers at one time. And right next to it, there's a clear all of the activations at one time. So you can batch do these, or you can do them one at a time. This is how the actual game plays, like if you're in a cardboard game. You have smoke markers and you have square markers, and if you take a loss, you actually add a loss marker, and it figures up what your unit's strength is. This is a 5, and it puts the correct marker there if you've lost 1 point of strength. So now it shows 4 remaining. All right, but there's another way to do this. One of the things that I like to do is I like to make things more immediate, fewer counters, easier to be on the board, no big stacks of things. So you can also click on your unit, right click, and go down here and choose a smoke layer. And then it puts a smoke right on that image. If you go to this guy, you can add a square layer, and it puts the square on the infantry so you can still see that it's in a square, but you can also see what the values are. And we've got a strength point loss. So if I go strength point loss, it actually marks this unit with the little blood badge here, the red badge of courage, so to speak, and it reduces the actual counter by 1. You can play either way. You can play it with the loss markers or just mark it on the counter. You might choose to combine these, and that's all fine too. If you do it by the counter change, you can recover, and we do that because, well, you can recover strength points, but also you might, in your haste to add a damage, you might do too many at one time. So you might click on it twice, and you really want to do it once, so you can modify that. So you can see that many of these markers here have lost strength points. So we tend to use, when we play, the loss directly on the counter, so we don't use the loss marker, but we usually put the square marker on top of the unit, as you can see over here. Okay, so the next thing on the counter is the flip, and the flip is how you get to new formations. So this is in a line. So if you want to change this to a column, you choose flip. And if you use this on a commander and you flip, you get to the replacement counter, the replacement version of the leader. And if you do this to an artillery unit, you flip and you get to the limbered side. So you'll notice that now that this is limbered and this is unlimbered. And if you do it to cavalry over here and flip, you get to your tired side. So every time you charge with cavalry, you need to mark it tired. And that makes a difference in how you're able to reaction charge and stuff. So it's important to keep track of that. Again, for that, there's a button up here on the toolbar to refresh cavalry, and that will refresh all the cavalry on the board of both sides. Okay, the cavalry, when you right click on it, you'll notice it has the movement information and the highlight information and the support point loss. So it's very much like an infantry formation at that point. The artillery has about the same thing too, but the commanders do not. So they have none of the add strength points and all of that. And they have the addition of the command range. So that's a little bit of a mess there, but hopefully that helps you out in learning how to use the VASSAL module. I'm going to turn off the smoke markers, and even though it's a smoke layer, it disappears. The square layers never disappear by bulk action. You have to remove those or add those, which is very good. You don't want to have the square marker that is supposed to stay there disappear. But this is about how it works. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how to run the module. And when you use this in combination with the toolbar, then you have everything that's in the VASSAL module. If you play the game and you find a problem, let me know. Please mail me directly, post it online here on the YouTube channel or in Board Game Geek for these Sound of Drums, Battles of Napoleon, Eylau 1807. We are working on the module from time to time to add things and fix things. So no request is crazy. Ask what you want and we'll decide whether we can do that, and it may show up in the next version. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon. I'm going to do some other how-tos coming up. Thanks a lot.